Prepare yourself for an extraordinary story that proves standing up for others can transform not just moments, but entire lives, companies, and communities. You're about to witness Barista defended a mocked coworker. The customer was a CEO and offered her a job on the spot. A powerful tale of courage, dignity, and the incredible ripple effects that occur when we choose to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Before we begin this inspiring journey, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell. Your support helps us continue sharing these remarkable true stories that remind us of the power of standing up for what's right. Now let's immerse ourselves in this unforgettable narrative. The Pacific Northwest rain drummed against the windows of Beacon Coffee House with the steady rhythm that Portlanders either loved or learned to tolerate. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in early April, and Samantha Chen was already an hour into her shift, the familiar choreography of espresso preparation flowing through her muscle memory like a well-rehearsed dance. The hiss of the steam wand, the rich aroma of freshly ground Colombian beans, the soft indie music playing just loud enough to create ambiance, but not so loud as to interfere with conversation. These were the elements of her daily symphony. At 26, Sam had been working at Beacon for 3 years, which made her practically a veteran in the high-turnover world of coffee service. She'd started as a desperate 23-year-old, fresh from dropping out of Portland State University, when her mother's cancer diagnosis had derailed everything. The medical bills had been crushing, even with insurance, and Sam had made the choice millions of Americans make every year: education or family. She'd chosen family, and even though her mother had lost her battle 2 years ago, Sam never regretted the choice. Those final months together had been worth more than any degree. Beacon Coffee House wasn't just any coffee shop. Tucked into the corner of Northwest 23rd Avenue, it occupied a converted Victorian house that had somehow survived Portland's aggressive modernization. The exposed brick walls were covered with local art that rotated monthly. The mismatched furniture created cozy nooks that regular customers claimed as their own, and the smell of Patricia's homemade pastries, the owner insisted on baking them herself every morning at 4 a.m., gave the place a warmth that no corporate chain could replicate. Patricia Morrison was more than just an owner. She was Beacon's soul. A former Microsoft executive who'd cashed out during the dot-com boom, she'd opened Beacon not as a business venture, but as what she called an experiment in conscious capitalism. She paid above minimum wage, offered health insurance even to part-time employees, and had recently partnered with a local nonprofit called Ability Works to create inclusive employment opportunities for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, which brought Sam's attention to Daniel Harper, who was currently standing frozen in front of the espresso machine, his face flushed with concentration and anxiety. This was Daniel's second day of training, and the morning rush was about to begin, that tsunami of caffeine-desperate customers that would test even experienced baristas. Daniel was 42 years old with Down syndrome and the kindest eyes Sam had ever seen. He'd been hired through the Ability Works program, and yesterday, his first day, had gone reasonably well during the slow afternoon shift. But mornings at Beacon were different. Mornings were battlefield conditions, where orders stacked up, customers grew impatient, and mistakes could cascade into chaos. "Remember, Daniel," Sam said gently, moving to stand beside him, "the steam wand is like a paintbrush. You're painting with milk. Gentle movements, keep it at an angle." Daniel nodded, his tongue poking out slightly, a concentration habit that Sam had noticed yesterday. His hands, she observed, were remarkably steady when he wasn't nervous. Yesterday afternoon, when it had just been the two of them and a handful of customers, he'd actually produced some decent microfoam. But now, with the clock approaching 7 a.m. and the regular morning crowd about to descend, she could feel his anxiety radiating like heat. "I practiced at home," Daniel said, his voice carrying that particular earnestness that made Sam's heart squeeze. "My mom bought me a milk frother. Not the same, but I practiced the movements." "That's amazing, Daniel. Practice is how we all get better." The bell above the door chimed, and Sam's internal clock registered the beginning of the rush. First would be the pre-7 a.m. crowd, the hospital workers from OHSU grabbing coffee before their shifts, the fitness enthusiasts who'd just finished their morning workouts, the parents who'd dropped kids at early daycare. "Sam, can you take register while Marcus helps me with the pastry delivery?" Patricia called from the back. Got it. Sam moved to the register, leaving Daniel with Jenny, another barista, who was competent but not particularly patient. Sam made a mental note to keep an eye on them. The next hour unfolded in the controlled chaos that Sam had learned to navigate. Orders flew in. Double cappuccino, extra dry, with a half pump of vanilla. Oat milk latte, extra hot, no foam. Black coffee, just black coffee. Why does no one serve just black coffee anymore? Sam's fingers danced across the register's touchscreen while simultaneously calling out orders to Jenny and Daniel, keeping a mental map of who was where in the queue, who was getting impatient, who needed a little extra friendliness to start their day right. She noticed Daniel struggling with a particularly demanding drink, a caramel macchiato with specific layering requirements. His hands were shaking now, and Jenny, instead of helping, had simply taken over, pushing Daniel aside with a frustrated sigh that everyone in the shop could hear. "I'll get this," Jenny said curtly. "Daniel, just watch or something." The dismissal was casual, but Sam saw its impact. Daniel's shoulders slumped, his face reddening not with effort but with shame. He stepped back, bumping into the counter, knocking over a stack of cups that clattered to the floor. Sorry, Daniel mumbled, dropping to his knees to collect them. That's when Sam heard it. "Oh my God, are you serious right now?" The voice was sharp, cutting through the ambient noise like a blade. "They're letting retards work here now. No wonder the service is so slow." The word hit the coffee shop like a physical blow. Sam's hands froze over the register. Several customers gasped. The ambient conversation died instantly, leaving only the hiss of the espresso machine and the quiet jazz playing overhead. The speaker was a woman in her mid-30s, everything about her screaming entitled wealth, from her perfectly blown-out blonde hair that had somehow survived the Portland rain, to her designer athleisure wear that cost more than Sam made in a month, to the way she stood with one hip cocked, her lips pursed in disgust as she stared at Daniel. Daniel was still on his knees, cups in his hands, but Sam could see his whole body had gone rigid. When he looked up, there were tears streaming down his face, and the naked hurt in his expression made something inside Sam snap into place. Not break, not bend, but snap into place, like a bone being reset after a dislocation. Sam stepped out from behind the register, her movements deliberate and calm. The entire coffee shop seemed to hold its breath as she walked past the line of customers, past Jenny, who stood frozen with the milk pitcher still in her hand, past Daniel, who was struggling to stand up with his armful of cups. She stopped directly in front of the woman, close enough that the woman had to take a half step back. "Get out," Sam said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of authority that made everyone in the shop lean in to listen. "Excuse me?" The woman's voice pitched higher, incredulous. "You can't talk to me like that. I'm a customer. I pay your salary." "No," Sam said, still in that deadly quiet voice. "You were a customer. Now you're someone who just used a slur against a person with disabilities, which is not only morally reprehensible, but also illegal under Oregon's disability discrimination laws. You're creating a hostile environment for our staff and other customers. This is ridiculous. I want to speak to your manager." "I'm the shift supervisor," Sam said, which was technically true as of last week, though she'd never had to exercise that authority like this. "And I'm telling you to leave. Now. You can't kick me out for expressing an opinion. I absolutely can kick you out for hate speech. Would you like me to call the police and file a formal complaint?" Oregon Revised Statute 659A explicitly prohibits discrimination based on disability in places of public accommodation. The fine is up to $5,000. Sam had no idea if that was the exact statute or the correct fine. She was pulling from a half-remembered training video, but her confident delivery made it sound authoritative. The woman's face went from red to white. "This is insane. You're going to lose your job over this. I'm going to make sure everyone knows about this place, about how they treat customers." "Good," a male voice interrupted from behind them. "Please do tell everyone. Tell them that Beacon Coffee stands up for human dignity. Tell them we don't tolerate hate speech. Tell them we protect our employees." Everyone turned to see a man in his 50s stepping forward from the line. He was wearing an expensive but understated suit, the kind that whispered rather than shouted its quality. He had silver hair, kind eyes behind designer glasses, and an air of quiet authority that made the angry woman take another step back. "And you are?" she demanded, though with less venom. Someone who's been watching this entire interaction, he said calmly. I'd be happy to serve as a witness if this young lady does decide to file charges. I have video on my phone, including your use of that slur. The woman looked around the shop, seeming to realize for the first time that everyone was staring at her with expressions ranging from disgust to anger. 2 other customers had their phones out, clearly recording. This is ridiculous, she muttered, but the fight had gone out of her. She grabbed her designer purse and headed for the door, pausing to deliver one last shot. Enjoy your job while it lasts. After the door slammed behind her, the coffee shop remained silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Within seconds, the entire shop erupted in applause. Sam felt her legs go weak with delayed adrenaline, and she had to grab the counter for support. But her first concern was Daniel. She found him sitting on the floor behind the counter, cups scattered around him, tears streaming down his face. Jenny stood nearby, looking ashamed. Daniel, Sam said softly, crouching beside him. I'm so sorry. What she said was horrible and wrong, and absolutely not true. People always say things like that, Daniel whispered. Usually not so loud, but they think it. I can tell. Some people are ignorant and cruel, Sam said. But that's their failing, not yours. You belong here. You're part of our team. Patricia had emerged from the back, having heard the commotion. Her face was a study in controlled fury. Daniel, Sam's absolutely right. Anyone who can't treat our staff with respect isn't welcome here. Take the rest of the day off, paid of course. Come back tomorrow when you're ready. But I need to learn. You need to take care of yourself first. The coffee will still be here tomorrow. As Daniel gathered his things, the man in the suit approached the counter. I'd like to pay for everyone's coffee this morning, he said to Patricia. What just happened here, that young woman's courage, your support of your employee, it deserves recognition. That's very generous, but, Patricia began. Please, it would be my honor. He handed over a black American Express card that Sam recognized as the kind with no spending limit. Also, I'd very much like to speak with the young lady who stood up to that customer, if she has a moment. Patricia looked at Sam, who nodded. The morning rush was actually calming now. Funny how confronting discrimination made serving coffee seem easy by comparison. The man extended his hand. Jonathan Winters, I run a company here in Portland. Sam shook his hand, noting his firm but not crushing grip. Samantha Chen, Sam. Sam, what you did just now was remarkable. Not just the courage to confront that woman, but how you did it. You quoted legal statutes, maintained complete professionalism, and de-escalated a situation that could have become violent. I just did what anyone should do, but most people don't. I've been coming here for months, always during the morning rush. I've watched you work. You have exceptional emotional intelligence, natural leadership abilities, and now I've seen you have moral courage as well. Sam wasn't sure how to respond. She was still shaking from the confrontation, and this stranger's intense focus was unsettling. Mr. Winters, Jonathan, please. Jonathan, I appreciate what you're saying, but I was just protecting my coworker. Exactly. You put principle over profit, human dignity over customer satisfaction. Do you know how rare that is in business? Jonathan pulled out a business card from his wallet. Sam's eyes widened as she read it. Jonathan Winters, Chief Executive Officer, Cascade Dynamics. Even Sam, who didn't follow business news religiously, knew about Cascade Dynamics. They were Portland's golden child of sustainable technology, a billion-dollar company that had somehow maintained its soul while scaling. They were constantly in the news for their innovative work culture, their environmental initiatives, their community involvement. You're that Jonathan Winters, Sam said, unable to hide her surprise. I'm just a guy who drinks too much coffee and recognizes talent when he sees it. He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. Sam, I'd like to offer you a job. Sam nearly laughed. Mr. Winters, Jonathan, I'm a barista. I make coffee. I don't know anything about sustainable technology. You know about people. You know about making hard decisions under pressure. You know about standing up for what's right even when it costs you. Those are exactly the qualities I look for in leaders. Leaders? I'm 26 years old with 2 years of college. Mark Zuckerberg was 19 when he started Facebook. Bill Gates dropped out of college. Formal education is just one path to competence. What you demonstrated today, emotional intelligence, legal knowledge you've somehow acquired, crisis management skills, moral clarity, those things can't be taught in a classroom. Sam felt like she was in a dream. This morning she'd woken up worried about making rent. Now a billionaire CEO was offering her a job because she'd stood up to a bully? What would I even do at a company like Cascade Dynamics? Help us remember that companies are made of people. Help us build inclusive policies that actually work. Help us create a culture where someone like Daniel would be valued for his contributions, not mocked for his differences. Jonathan glanced at his watch. A simple Timex, Sam noticed, not the Rolex she would have expected. I have a meeting I can't miss, but I'd love to continue this conversation. Would you be free for lunch tomorrow? Sam thought about her schedule. She was supposed to work a double tomorrow to cover for a sick coworker, but Patricia, who'd been listening to the entire exchange, immediately said, "She's free. I'll cover her shift myself if I have to." "Patricia? Sam, opportunities like this don't come twice. Take the meeting." Jonathan smiled. "Excellent. Noon at Andina. It's quiet enough that we can actually talk." Andina was one of Portland's most acclaimed restaurants. Sam had walked past it dozens of times but never imagined eating there. Okay, yes, noon. Perfect. And Sam, come as you are. Don't try to be someone you're not. It's who you are that interests me." After he left, the coffee shop buzzed with excitement. Regular customers who'd witnessed the whole thing were talking about it. Several had posted videos on social media that were already going viral, and Patricia was fielding calls from local news outlets who'd heard about the incident. But Sam's mind was on Daniel. She found him in the break room getting ready to leave. "Daniel, wait. Are you okay?" He turned to her, and to her surprise, he was smiling slightly. "No one's ever stood up for me like that before. My whole life people have said mean things and everyone just pretends they didn't hear. That's not okay. It's never been okay. My mom's going to cry when I tell her. Happy tears, though. She always says I need to find places where people see me as Daniel, not as Down syndrome. I think Beacon might be that place. It absolutely is that place. And Daniel, you're going to be a great barista. I saw your potential yesterday. You have steady hands, good focus, and you actually care about making drinks right. That's more than half the baristas I've trained started with." Daniel hugged her suddenly, a quick, fierce embrace that caught Sam off guard. "Thank you for seeing me," he whispered. As he left, Sam stood in the break room, processing everything that had happened in the span of an hour. She'd woken up a barista worried about bills. She might go to bed with a job offer from one of Portland's most successful companies, but more importantly, she'd stood up for someone who needed defending. Whatever came next, she'd always have that. If you're moved by this story of courage and standing up for others, please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to follow Sam's incredible journey from coffee shop to corporate office. Sometimes defending someone else opens doors you never knew existed. That evening, Sam sat in her studio apartment in southeast Portland, a 400-square-foot space that she'd tried to make cozy with string lights, second-hand furniture, and plants she constantly forgot to water. Her laptop, a refurbished MacBook held together with duct tape and determination, was open to article after article about Cascade Dynamics and Jonathan Winters. The company's origin story read like a Silicon Valley fairy tale, except it had happened in Portland. Jonathan had started the company in his garage 15 years ago after his son Noah was diagnosed with autism. Frustrated by the lack of assistive technologies that actually understood neurodivergent needs, he'd begun developing solutions. What started as a father trying to help his son had evolved into a company that created everything from revolutionary solar panels made from recycled materials to AI systems that helped non-verbal individuals communicate. But what struck Sam most was the company culture. Every article mentioned it. Cascade Dynamics had unlimited sick leave for employees caring for family members. They had on-site childcare that included specialized support for children with disabilities. They hired formerly incarcerated individuals, refugees, people in recovery from addiction. Their neurodiversity program was considered the gold standard, with over 15% of their workforce being neurodivergent individuals in meaningful, well-paid positions. "They practice what they preach," Sam murmured, reading an interview where Jonathan said, "Companies talk about diversity and inclusion, but then they require 10 years of experience for entry-level positions and reject anyone whose resume doesn't follow a traditional path. We hire for potential and character. Skills can be taught, character can't." Her phone buzzed with a text from her Aunt Linda, her only remaining family since her mother's death. "Saw the video on Facebook. You're famous. And that man who offered you a job, I Googled him. Sam, this could change your life. Sam typed back, it feels too good to be true. Why would he want to hire a barista? Because you stood up for someone when it mattered. That's who you've always been. Remember in high school when you organized that protest against the dress code? Or when you tutored that kid with dyslexia for free because his family couldn't afford help? You've always fought for others. Maybe someone finally noticed. Aunt Linda was right. Sam had always been the one to speak up, to step in, to stand up. It had gotten her in trouble more than once. Suspended in high school for the dress code protest. Written up at her previous retail job for refusing to follow a discriminatory policy about surveilling black customers. But she'd never been able to stay silent in the face of injustice. She pulled up the video someone had posted of the incident. Watching herself was surreal. She looked so calm, so authoritative. Inside, she'd been terrified, but none of that showed. What showed was determination, protection, fierce advocacy for someone who couldn't advocate for himself. The comments on the video were overwhelming. This is what allyship looks like. That barista is a hero. Beacon Coffee just gained a customer for life. The way she quoted legal statutes, though, protect people with disabilities. This woman shows how. But there were negative comments too. She'll probably lose her job for losing a customer. Virtue signaling much? The customer was rude, but had a point about service being slow. Sam closed the laptop, not wanting to read more. Tomorrow she'd have lunch with Jonathan Winters. Tomorrow her life might change completely. Or tomorrow he might realize she was just a barista who'd had one moment of courage and decide the job offer had been impulsive. Either way, tomorrow would come. Tonight, she needed to figure out what to wear to Andina, one of Portland's most expensive restaurants, when her nicest outfit was the black jeans without holes and a sweater from Target. Her phone rang. It was Daniel. Sam, it's Daniel. From work. Hi, Daniel. How are you doing? Better. I told my mum what happened. She cried. Then she baked cookies. Then she cried again. She wants to meet you. I'd love to meet her too. Sam, the man in the suit, the one who offered you a job. You should take it. It's not that simple, Daniel. Yes, it is. Good things should happen to good people. You're good people. After they hung up, Sam sat looking around her tiny apartment. The water stain on the ceiling from the upstairs neighbor's leaking pipe. The single window that faced a brick wall. The hot plate she used for cooking because the stove had been broken since she moved in. Then she thought about her mother's last words to her. Baby, I'm so sorry I couldn't give you more. I'm sorry you had to drop out of school for me. Sam had told her mother it didn't matter, that being together was worth more than any degree. She'd meant it then. She still meant it now. But maybe, just maybe, the universe was finally offering her a chance to have both purpose and prosperity. She fell asleep that night thinking about Daniel's simple words. Good things should happen to good people. The next morning at Beacon, the atmosphere was electric. The video of Sam defending Daniel had gone properly viral overnight, with over 1 million views across various platforms. Patricia had fielded 24 calls from news outlets wanting interviews. 3 disability rights organizations had reached out about making Sam some kind of spokesperson. The mayor's office had called to commend the shop's stance on inclusion. But the most remarkable change was in the customers. The morning rush was bigger than usual, filled with people who'd seen the video and wanted to support the shop. Many specifically asked for Daniel to make their drinks, even though he was still learning. They waited patiently, encouraged him, and tipped generously. It's like the whole world changed overnight, Daniel said to Sam during a brief lull, his face glowing with happiness. People are being so nice to me. They're seeing who you really are, Sam said, not through the filter of their prejudices, but as Daniel the barista who's learning his craft. Daniel the barista, he repeated, smiling. I like that. Jenny approached them, looking uncomfortable. Sam, Daniel, I need to apologize. Yesterday when I pushed you aside, Daniel, that was wrong. I was frustrated, but that's no excuse. I should have helped you, not dismissed you. Daniel, with the kind of immediate forgiveness that seemed to come naturally to him, said, It's okay. Everyone has bad moments. You're having a good moment now. Jenny's eyes welled up. Can you show me your mum's milk frother technique? You mentioned you practiced at home. I'd like to learn it. As Daniel excitedly explained his practice routine to Jenny, Sam felt a hand on her shoulder. Patricia stood beside her, watching the interaction with satisfaction. You changed something yesterday, Patricia said. Not just for Daniel, but for everyone here. You showed us what courage looks like. I might have also cost you a customer. Patricia snorted. That woman? She ordered a half-calf, sugar-free vanilla soy latte with exactly 2 pumps of syrup and complained every single time that it wasn't right. Good riddance. Besides, look around. We've gained 50 customers for everyone we lost. At 11:30, Sam changed out of her coffee-stained apron and into the outfit she'd brought. Black jeans that were her nicest pair, a burgundy sweater that her mother had given her for her last birthday before the cancer got bad, and the only pair of non-sneaker shoes she owned, some worn ankle boots she'd found at Goodwill. You look great, Daniel said, giving her a thumbs up. I look like a barista trying to pretend she belongs at Andina. You look like Sam, Patricia said firmly. That's exactly who Jonathan Winters wants to meet. The walk to Andina took 15 minutes, during which Sam practiced what she might say, imagined all the ways this could go wrong, and twice considered turning back. But she kept walking, her mother's voice in her head. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Her mother had loved Winnie the Pooh quotes, said they contained all the wisdom anyone needed. Andina's exterior was understated, but the moment Sam walked in, she felt the weight of the place. White tablecloths, soft lighting, the kind of quiet that only expensive restaurants achieved. The hostess looked at Sam's outfit with barely concealed skepticism. I'm meeting Jonathan Winters, Sam said, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. The hostess's demeanor changed instantly. Of course. Mr. Winters is already here. Right this way. Jonathan sat at a corner table, and Sam was relieved to see he was dressed casually, jeans and a button-down shirt. He stood as she approached, pulling out her chair before she could do it herself. Sam, thank you for coming. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering some starters to share. The ceviche here is exceptional. I've never had ceviche, Sam admitted. Then you're in for a treat. It's like the ocean decided to become food. That unexpected description made Sam laugh, and some of her nervousness dissipated. Before we talk business, Jonathan said, I want to tell you something. That video of you defending Daniel? My son Noah watched it this morning. He's 10, autistic, and he's been bullied at school. Seeing you stand up for Daniel gave him hope that there are people who will stand up for him too. I'm sorry he's been bullied. Kids can be cruel. Adults can be worse. They just usually hide it better. That woman yesterday didn't even try to hide it. The ceviche arrived and Sam tried it tentatively. The explosion of lime and fish and cilantro was unlike anything she'd ever tasted. Oh, wow, she said without thinking. That's incredible. You should see what they do with octopus, Jonathan said, smiling. But let's talk about why we're here. Sam, I want to tell you about Cascade Dynamics, about what we're trying to build. For the next hour, Jonathan talked about his company with the passion of someone discussing their child. He explained how they were working on solar panels that could be printed like newspapers, making them accessible to developing nations. How their AI communication systems were helping non-verbal individuals express themselves in ways never before possible. How their hiring practices were revolutionizing what inclusive employment could look like. But we have a problem, he said. We're getting bigger, and with size comes the risk of losing our soul. I need people who understand our values at a gut level, not just intellectually. People who will stand up in board meetings the way you stood up in that coffee shop. You want me to stand up in board meetings? I don't even know what happens in board meetings. You'll learn. Sam, I'm offering you a position as Associate Director of Cultural Development. It's a new role I'm creating specifically for someone like you. Someone who understands that company culture isn't about ping-pong tables and free snacks, but about how we treat each other as humans. Associate Director? Jonathan, that's insane. I'm a barista. You're someone who manages complex situations under pressure. You train new employees. You handle difficult customers. You maintain quality standards. You just do it with coffee instead of code. But everyone there will have degrees, experience. We have 3 employees who were formerly homeless, 5 who were formerly incarcerated, 12 who are refugees, 7 who are in recovery from addiction, over 50 who are neurodivergent. What they all have in common isn't traditional credentials, it's character, potential, and someone who believed in them. Sam's head was spinning. What would this pay? Starting salary is $85,000, full benefits including health, dental, vision, and mental health support, 3 weeks paid vacation, unlimited sick leave, and we cover education if you want to finish your degree. Plus stock options that, if the company continues growing, could be worth significant money in a few years. Sam nearly choked on her water. $85,000. Is that not enough? It's more than I've made in the last 3 years combined. Jonathan's expression softened. Then you've been drastically undervalued. Sam, talent like yours, the ability to stand up for what's right, to think quickly under pressure, to lead with both strength and compassion, that's rare. Companies should compete for people like you. When would this start? Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow, next week, next month. Though I'd suggest giving Patricia proper notice. She's good people. She is. She gave me a chance when no one else would. And now I'm hoping you'll give me a chance to prove that corporate America doesn't have to be soulless, that we can do well by doing good. Sam thought about her mother, about the treatments they couldn't afford, about the clinical trials she couldn't get into because they required travel to other cities. Money wouldn't have saved her mother, but it would have given them options. It would have meant Sam could have spent those last months holding her mother's hand instead of working 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Can I think about it? Sam asked. Of course. Take all the time you need, though I hope not too much time. I'm eager to see what you could do with real resources and support. They finished lunch talking about lighter things. Portland's food scene, the eternal rain, the Blazers' chances this season. Jonathan insisted on paying, waving off Sam's protests. Consider it an investment, he said, either in a future employee or in karma for giving someone a chance to think about their future without worrying about the bill. As they stood to leave, Jonathan said something that stuck with Sam. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the years, Harvard MBAs, Stanford engineers, people with resumes that would make your head spin. But I've never been more certain about a hire than I am about you. Why? Because when it mattered, when there was nothing to gain and potentially everything to lose, you stood up. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Walking back to Beacon, Sam's phone exploded with texts. The video had been picked up by national news outlets. Ellen DeGeneres had tweeted about it. A GoFundMe someone had started for Daniel had raised $30,000 in 6 hours. The world had noticed what happened in a small Portland coffee shop. But Sam barely registered any of it. Her mind was on the choice before her. Take the safe path, stay at Beacon where she knew what each day would bring, where she was comfortable if not prosperous, or jump into the complete unknown, into a world she didn't understand, with people who'd probably see her as the token hire, the feel-good story. When she got back to Beacon, the afternoon shift was in full swing. Daniel was behind the counter, successfully steaming milk, while Jenny guided him with patience and encouragement. Patricia was at a table, laptop open, fielding what looked like more media requests. How did it go? Patricia asked immediately. He offered me a job, Associate Director of Cultural Development, $85,000 a year. Patricia whistled. That's life-changing money. It's terrifying money. I don't know how to be an Associate Director of anything. You know how to be, Sam. That's what he's hiring. Daniel overheard and came over, still wearing his apron that said trainee, even though Patricia had offered to get him one that just said barista. Are you going to take it? He asked. I don't know, Daniel. If I leave, who's going to make sure you're okay here? I'll be okay. Jenny's being nice now. And Marcus is teaching me latte art. And Patricia said I can work here as long as I want. He paused, then added with remarkable insight, You can't stay somewhere small because you're worried about other people. Sometimes being brave means letting other people be brave without you. That evening, Sam sat with Aunt Linda over Chinese takeout in Linda's apartment in Beaverton. Linda had raised Sam for 2 years in high school when Sam's mother had her first cancer battle, and she was the closest thing to a mother Sam had left. Mom would want me to take it, wouldn't she? Sam said, pushing lo mein around her plate. Your mother would want you to be happy. She'd also probably say something like, Fortune favors the brave, or leap and the net will appear, because she loved those motivational quotes. She had them all over the chemo ward. The nurses called her the fortune cookie lady. They laughed. Then Linda got serious. Sam, you've been in survival mode since your mum got sick. First taking care of her, then dealing with the grief and the bills. Maybe it's time to move from surviving to thriving. What if I fail? What if I get there and realize I'm completely out of my depth? Then you'll learn to swim. You always have. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the moment she'd stepped forward to confront that woman. She hadn't thought about consequences, about whether she was qualified to handle the situation. She'd just acted because it was right. Maybe that's what this was too. Not thinking too hard about whether she was qualified, but just acting because the opportunity was there, and turning it down out of fear would be its own kind of failure. At 3 a.m., she opened her laptop and typed an email to Jonathan. Mr. Winters, after careful consideration, I would be honored to accept the position of Associate Director of Cultural Development at Cascade Dynamics. I can start in 2 weeks, which will give me time to properly transition my responsibilities at Beacon and help Patricia find and train my replacement. I want to be honest. I'm terrified. I don't know if I'm qualified for this role, but I'm ready to learn, to work harder than I've ever worked, and to bring the same commitment to standing up for what's right that you witnessed at Beacon. Thank you for seeing something in me that I'm still learning to see in myself. Sam Chen. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling. In 2 weeks, everything would change. In 2 weeks, she'd walk into a corporate office as something other than the cleaning crew or a delivery person. In 2 weeks, she'd start becoming whoever she was meant to be. Her phone buzzed. At 3:47 a.m., Jonathan Winters had replied, Sam, fear is normal. I was terrified when I started Cascade. I'm still terrified some days. But fear keeps us humble, makes us work harder, reminds us that we're attempting something that matters. You are more qualified than you know. And the qualifications you don't have yet, you'll gain. We'll make sure of it. Welcome to Cascade Dynamics. You're going to change our company for the better. I'm certain of it. Jonathan P.S. My assistant will contact you tomorrow about paperwork, equipment, and all the boring but necessary details. Don't let the corporate speak intimidate you. It's all just fancy words for simple concepts. Sam smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow she'd wake up and make coffee, just like she had for 3 years. But now she was counting down to something new, something terrifying and exciting in equal measure. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. The media attention around the incident intensified. Sam did 2 local news interviews, turning down the national requests because the attention made her uncomfortable. Daniel, on the other hand, embraced his newfound fame with joy, giving an interview to the Today Show where he charmed the hosts by explaining the perfect milk-to-foam ratio for a cappuccino. Patricia hired 2 new baristas to replace Sam, both through the Ability Works program, a young woman with autism who had a genius-level ability to remember customer orders, and a man with cerebral palsy who typed with 1 finger, but whose customer service skills were exceptional. You started something, Patricia told Sam. Other coffee shops in Portland are reaching out to Ability Works. 3 have already committed to inclusive hiring. Sam trained her replacements with the same patience she'd shown Daniel, creating detailed guides with pictures for every drink, laminated cards with common customer requests, and a color-coded system for managing rush periods. On her last day at Beacon, the regular customers threw her a surprise party. The tip jar overflowed with congratulations cards and money. Someone had made a cake decorated to look like a latte with foam art. Daniel gave a speech that made everyone cry. Sam showed me that standing up for someone isn't just about the big moments. It's about the small ones too. Teaching me to steam milk when she was busy, telling me I belonged here when I didn't believe it, making sure I knew that what that mean lady said wasn't true. Sam stands up for people every day, in big ways and small ways. Cascade Dynamics is lucky to have her. Jonathan Winters himself showed up for the party, buying rounds of coffee for everyone and chatting with Daniel about his progress as a barista. He's getting really good, Jonathan told Sam. That cortado he made me was perfect. He has good instincts. He just needed people to believe in him. Like someone else I know. Monday morning arrived grey and misty. Because Portland couldn't even give Sam sunshine for her first day at a new job, she stood outside Cascade Dynamics building, a modern structure that seemed to be made of sustainable bamboo and recycled glass, trying to calm her nerves. The lobby was unlike any corporate space she'd imagined. Instead of cold marble and intimidating sculptures, there were living walls of plants, comfortable seating areas that looked like someone's living room, and a coffee bar that, Sam noted with professional interest, was serving Beacon coffee. You must be Sam. A woman with purple hair and a warm smile approached her. I'm Maya, Jonathan's assistant. I've been dying to meet you. That video of you defending your coworker. I've watched it like 15 times. Total superhero moment. Maya's enthusiasm was infectious, and Sam felt some of her nervousness dissipate as she was led through the building. The office was open plan, but thoughtfully designed, with quiet pods for focused work, collaboration spaces that looked more like cafes than conference rooms, and everywhere were plants and natural light. "Here's your office," Maya said, opening a door. Sam stopped. "I have an office." "Of course. Associate directors get offices. It's not huge, but it's yours." The office was perfect. A window overlooking the city, a desk that wasn't particle board, a chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and, Sam almost laughed, a coffee machine. "Jonathan thought you'd appreciate having your own coffee set up," Maya explained. "That's actually a $3,000 espresso machine. He may have gone overboard." "It's perfect," Sam said, meaning the whole space, not just the coffee machine. After Maya helped her set up her computer and showed her the basic systems, Jonathan appeared in her doorway. "Ready for your first team meeting?" he asked. "I don't even know what team I'm on." "You're on all of them, in a way. Cultural development means you'll work across departments. But today you're meeting with the Inclusion Task Force, 5 employees from different departments who volunteer their time to make Cascade more inclusive. I think you'll like them." The conference room had no conference table. Instead, there were comfortable chairs arranged in a circle, whiteboards covering the walls, and toys on a side table, fidget spinners, stress balls, colorful blocks. "For our neurodivergent employees," Jonathan explained. "Some people think better when their hands are busy." The team members filed in, and Sam was surprised by the diversity, not just racial and ethnic, though that was there too, but diversity of ability, of background, of presentation. There was Marcus, a black man with locked hair, who introduced himself as a formerly incarcerated software engineer. Priya, an Indian woman in a wheelchair who ran quality assurance. Kevin, a white guy with visible Tourette's who worked in accounting. Lisa, a trans woman who headed up customer service. And David, an older gentleman with a service dog who worked in facilities management. "So you're the barista who went viral," Marcus said with a grin. "Welcome to the island of misfit toys." "That's what we call ourselves," Priya explained. "Everyone here has been told at some point that we didn't belong in corporate America. Now we're proving them wrong. And making sure others get the same chance," Lisa added. For the next 2 hours, they discussed ongoing initiatives, a mentorship program for neurodivergent interns, partnerships with re-entry programs for formerly incarcerated individuals, accessibility audits of all company software, unconscious bias training that actually worked. "But we need more," Kevin said, his shoulder jerking in a tick. "We need someone who can make cultural change stick, not just implement programs." "That's where you come in," Jonathan said to Sam. "You have a gift for seeing people clearly, for understanding what they need to thrive. I want you to spend the next month shadowing different departments, learning how we work, identifying where we're failing our values. And then? Then you tell me, and the board, and we fix it." Sam's head was spinning. "You want me to tell the board of directors where the company is failing? I want you to tell the truth. That's what you did at Beacon. That's what I need you to do here." After the meeting, Priya wheeled over to Sam. "Word of advice? Don't try to be corporate, be yourself. That's why you're here." "I don't know how to be anything else." "Good. Keep it that way. This place has enough people who know how to speak corporate. We need people who know how to speak human." The first month was overwhelming. Sam shadowed every department, taking notes on everything from how meetings were run to how the bathrooms were designed. Not all were truly accessible, she discovered. She ate lunch with entry-level employees, learning about their struggles with childcare and transportation. She sat in on executive meetings, watching how decisions were made and whose voices were heard and whose weren't. She made mistakes. Once, she replied, all to an email meant for Jonathan alone, accidentally sharing her candid thoughts about a problematic policy with the entire company. Instead of being fired, she received dozens of emails thanking her for saying what others had been thinking. Another time, she challenged a senior engineer in a meeting, pointing out that his brilliant new interface would be impossible for people with motor disabilities to use. He was furious at first, then came to her office later to apologize and ask for help redesigning it. "No one's ever called me out like that," he said. "I needed it." But the real change came when Sam implemented her first major initiative, the Shadow Program. Every executive had to spend 1 day a month doing entry-level work in their department. The CEO of a billion-dollar company would spend a day in customer service. The CFO would work in accounts receivable. The CTO would do basic coding. "This is ridiculous," some board members protested. "Executive time is too valuable." "Executive decisions affect entry-level employees," Sam countered. "How can you make good decisions if you don't understand the reality of the work?" Jonathan backed her completely and the program went forward. The first month was chaos. Executives discovered that the systems they'd designed were often unnecessarily complicated, that the metrics they'd imposed were sometimes impossible to meet, that the employees they'd never noticed were often the ones holding everything together. The second month was better. Changes started happening, systems were simplified, metrics were adjusted, and perhaps most importantly, executives started knowing entry-level employees by name. Meanwhile, Sam's personal life was transforming too. With her new salary, she'd moved to a one-bedroom apartment with an actual bedroom, a working stove, and no water stains on the ceiling. She'd bought a car that didn't require prayer to start. She'd started therapy to deal with the grief of losing her mother, and the survivor's guilt of succeeding when so many others didn't get the same chances. She stayed close to Beacon, visiting every week. Daniel had become a full barista, his drinks now some of the most requested. The woman who'd insulted him had actually returned to apologize, going through her own journey of growth after losing her job when her employer saw the viral video. "I was raised wrong," she told Daniel. "That's not an excuse, just an explanation. I'm trying to be better." Daniel, with his endless capacity for forgiveness, had made her a latte and told her everyone deserved second chances. 6 months into her role at Cascade, Sam was called into an emergency board meeting. A video had surfaced of one of their satellite offices, employees making fun of a janitor with an intellectual disability, imitating his speech patterns, laughing as he struggled to understand their jokes. The board was in crisis mode. The PR damage could be devastating. Stock prices were already dropping. "We need to fire everyone involved," one board member said. "We need a press release distancing ourselves from this behavior," another suggested. "We need to prove this isn't who we are," a third added. Sam listened to them panic for 10 minutes, then stood up. "May I?" she asked Jonathan, who nodded. "Firing everyone involved is the easy solution," she said. "It makes us look decisive but doesn't address the culture that allowed this to happen. A press release is just words unless we back it with action. And proving this isn't who we are? This is who we are, at least in that office. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" The room was silent. Board members who commanded millions of dollars were staring at the 26-year-old former barista. "What would you suggest?" the board chair asked. "We own this. Completely. No distancing, no excuses. We admit we failed that employee and commit to specific changes. Every employee in that office goes through intensive empathy training, not the corporate slideshow kind, but real interaction with people with disabilities. We hire more people with intellectual disabilities, not just in janitorial roles, but throughout the company. We create a position, Chief Dignity Officer or something similar, whose sole job is to ensure every employee is treated with respect." "That seems extreme," someone said. "Extreme is letting this happen in the first place. Look, I know you're worried about stock prices and reputation, but what if we became the company that didn't just apologize for discrimination, but actually eliminated it? What if we became the gold standard for how corporations should treat all employees? The market might punish us," the CFO warned. "Or the market might reward us for being the only company with the courage to truly change," Sam countered. Jonathan had been quiet throughout the exchange. Now he spoke. "I founded this company to create technology that helps people. If we can't help our own employees, what's the point?" Sam's right. We own this, and we fix it properly. The board voted. It was close, but Sam's proposal won. The next day, Jonathan held a company-wide video call. He didn't minimize or excuse. He showed the video, acknowledged the failure, and outlined the comprehensive changes they were implementing. He introduced Sam as the company's first Chief Dignity Officer, a position that would report directly to him and have the authority to investigate and address any instances of discrimination or disrespect. The response was mixed. Stock prices did drop initially. Some investors pulled out. But something else happened too. Employees started coming forward with their own stories of discrimination they'd faced and never reported. Applications from diverse candidates increased by 400%. Other companies reached out, wanting to learn about the dignity officer role. Within 3 months, the stock had not only recovered, but reached record highs. The market, it turned out, valued authentic leadership and genuine inclusion. But for Sam, the real victory was smaller and more personal. The janitor from the video, a man named Robert with Down syndrome, not only kept his job but was promoted to facilities team lead, where his attention to detail and dedication made him exceptional. "So you saved my job," Robert told Sam. "No, you earned your job. I just made sure people saw your value." A year into her role, Sam was sitting in her office, which now had plants, photos from Beacon, and a coffee bar that rivaled any shop in Portland, when Maya knocked. "Someone here to see you, says he's a friend from your coffee shop days." Daniel walked in, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit right, but carrying himself with new confidence. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" "I have a job interview." "Here at Cascade?" "In customer service. Patricia helped me apply. She said companies need people who understand service, and I've been doing that for a year now." Sam immediately called Lisa from customer service. "I'm sending someone to you. His name is Daniel Harper. He has Down syndrome, and he's the best natural customer service person I've ever met. Give him a fair interview." 2 hours later, Lisa called back. "We're hiring him. He handled every scenario we threw at him with patience and creativity. Plus, he made me laugh 3 times during the interview." Daniel started the next week. Within 6 months, he was training other customer service representatives. His approach, genuine empathy, endless patience, and an ability to find humor, even in difficult situations, became the model for the entire department. "I knew you belonged here," Sam told him over lunch in the company cafeteria. "We both belonged here," Daniel corrected. "We just had to wait for the right door to open." 2 years passed. Sam's role evolved from Chief Dignity Officer to Vice President of Human Development, overseeing not just inclusion initiatives, but all employee development programs. She'd finished her degree through Cascade's education program, though she'd learned more from doing the job than from any classroom. She'd also started dating Marcus from the Inclusion Task Force, whose journey from prison to programmer had its own remarkable story. They understood each other's struggles with imposter syndrome, with survivors' guilt, with the pressure of representing more than just themselves. "We're symbols," Marcus said one evening as they walked along the Willamette River. "You're the barista who made good. I'm the ex-con who went straight. It's exhausting, but necessary," Sam replied. "Until there are so many of us that we stop being remarkable." The incident at Beacon had become a Harvard Business School case study. Sam had been invited to speak at conferences, universities, even the United Nations about corporate inclusion, but she always brought Daniel with her when possible. "This is Daniel Harper," she would say. "He's the reason I'm here, not because he needed defending, but because his courage in facing discrimination every day inspired me to find my own courage." Daniel would then talk about his customer service philosophy, invariably charming audiences with his straightforward wisdom and genuine warmth. One day, Jonathan called Sam into his office with an unusual request. "I'm stepping back," he said. "Not retiring, but moving to chairman. The board needs to select a new CEO." Sam's heart sank. Jonathan was Cascade. Without him, "I want to recommend you." "What?" "Jonathan, no. I've been here 2 years. I'm 28 years old. I don't have an MBA. You have something better. You understand people. You've transformed our culture, increased employee retention by 60%, and improved productivity by making people actually want to work here. The board respects you. The employees trust you. There must be better candidates. There are more traditional candidates, but Cascade has never been traditional. We've succeeded by doing things differently. You embody that difference. I need to think about it." "Of course. But Sam, you're ready. You've been ready since you stood up to that customer at Beacon." Sam went to the place she always went when she needed to think, Beacon Coffee. Patricia was behind the counter, her hair now more silver than brown, but her energy unchanged. "Sam, your usual?" "Just a black coffee today. I need clarity, not comfort." She told Patricia about Jonathan's recommendation. Patricia listened, made Sam's coffee with the same care she'd have given a complex latte, then sat down across from her. "Do you remember your first day here?" Patricia asked. "You were so nervous you dropped an entire tray of mugs, shattered everyone." "You didn't fire me. I saw something in you. The way you immediately took responsibility, cleaned everything up. Insisted on paying for the damages even though I knew you couldn't afford it. That told me who you were. That was different. Was it? You stood up then, taking responsibility. You stood up for Daniel. You stand up every day at Cascade for people who can't stand up for themselves. Maybe CEO is just standing up on a bigger stage. What if I fail? What if you succeed? What if you become the first CEO who truly understands what it's like to struggle? Who makes decisions based on how they affect the most vulnerable employees, not just shareholders? That evening, Sam had dinner with Aunt Linda, Marcus, and Daniel, her chosen family. She told them about the opportunity. You have to do it, Daniel said immediately. You have to show everyone that people like us can be in charge too. People like us? Sam asked. People who know what it's like to be different, to be looked down on, to have to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Marcus squeezed her hand. He's right, it's not just about you anymore. It's about every barista, every person with a disability, every formerly incarcerated individual, every person who's been told they don't belong in spaces of power. Aunt Linda, ever practical, said, your mother would be so proud. But she'd also say, don't do it for anyone else. Do it because you want to. I want to change things, Sam said. Really change things. Not just implement programs, but transform how corporations think about their role in society. Then you have your answer. The CEO selection process took 6 months. Sam competed against 2 external candidates, one from Amazon, one from Google. Both had impeccable credentials, decades of experience, and traditional corporate backgrounds. But Sam had something else. During her presentation to the board, she didn't use PowerPoints or financial projections. She brought in employees, Robert the janitor who'd been mocked, Marcus the formerly incarcerated programmer, Daniel from customer service, Priya in her wheelchair, Kevin with his tics. These are the people who make Cascade successful, she said, not because of their disabilities or challenges, but because of their perspectives, their resilience, their unique ways of solving problems. If you make me CEO, I promise to build a company where everyone can thrive. But can you handle the financial pressures? A board member asked. The quarterly expectations, the shareholder demands? I've been handling pressure my whole life, Sam replied. The pressure of keeping my mother alive while keeping us housed. The pressure of serving hundreds of customers while training new employees. The pressure of standing up to discrimination when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Corporate pressure? That's just pressure with better pay. The board voted. It wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. Sam Chen, former barista, college dropout, defender of the vulnerable, became CEO of Cascade Dynamics at age 29. The announcement made international news. From coffee to CEO, the incredible rise of Sam Chen. Cascade Dynamics appoints youngest female CEO in tech, the barista who became a billionaire's boss. But the headline Sam liked best was from a disability rights publication. CEO who stood up for coworker with Down syndrome promises dignity revolution in corporate America. Her first act as CEO was to establish the Daniel Harper Excellence in Service Award, given annually to employees who exemplified inclusive leadership. Daniel himself was the first recipient, receiving the award at a company-wide celebration where there wasn't a dry eye in the house. This is too much, Daniel said at the podium, looking at the crystal trophy. I just try to be nice to people. That's exactly the point, Sam said. Being nice to people, treating everyone with dignity, seeing the value in every person. That's not just nice, it's revolutionary. Within her first year as CEO, Sam had implemented a $25 minimum wage for all employees, including contractors, created an on-site childcare program that included specialized support for children with disabilities, established a hiring program specifically for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, launched a Second Chances initiative for formerly incarcerated individuals, made Cascade the first major tech company to have 50% of leadership positions held by people. From non-traditional backgrounds, the business media was skeptical. Chen's idealism will bankrupt Cascade, one headline read. Social justice CEO forgets about profits, read another. But the numbers told a different story. Employee productivity increased 40%. Innovation output doubled. Diverse teams were solving problems in ways homogeneous teams never could. Customer satisfaction reached record highs, with Daniel's customer service team leading the industry. And profits? They increased by 35% in Sam's first year. Turns out, Sam told a reporter, when you treat people with dignity, they do exceptional work. When you give chances to people who've never had them, they're exceptionally grateful and loyal. When you build a company that reflects the diversity of the world, you can serve that world better. 3 years into her tenure as CEO, Sam stood before the United Nations Global Compact, delivering a keynote on corporate responsibility. She started with the story everyone knew by now: the customer, the slur, the moment of standing up. But that's not the real story, she said. The real story is Daniel Harper, who showed up to work every day, despite facing discrimination. The real story is Patricia Morrison, who hired inclusively when it wasn't trendy. The real story is Jonathan Winters, who saw potential where others saw only a barista. The real story is every company that has the power to transform lives and chooses not to. She announced Cascade's newest initiative, a global fellowship program that would identify people like she had been, working in service industries but capable of so much more, and give them the training, support, and opportunities to enter corporate leadership. We're calling it the Dignity Fellowship, she said, because everyone deserves dignity, and everyone deserves a chance. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Backstage after her speech, Sam found Daniel waiting for her. He was Director of Customer Experience now, having revolutionized how Cascade thought about service. He was also engaged to Jenny from Beacon, the same Jenny who had once pushed him aside in frustration, but had learned and grown and eventually fallen in love with his kindness. "You did it," Daniel said. "You changed everything." "We did it," Sam corrected. "All of us. Everyone who chooses to stand up instead of staying quiet. Everyone who sees people for who they are, not what they appear to be." "Remember when you were just a barista?" Daniel asked with a grin. "I was never just a barista. You were never just a person with Down syndrome. We were always exactly who we are now. It just took the right moment for the world to see it." 5 years later, at the 10-year anniversary of the incident, as everyone called it, Beacon Coffee hosted a celebration. The shop had expanded to 3 locations, all maintaining their commitment to inclusive hiring. Patricia had retired, but still came in every morning for coffee. The original video of Sam defending Daniel played on screens around the shop. It had been viewed over 100 million times, been turned into a short film, and inspired countless other moments of standing up. Sam stood with Daniel, looking at photos from their journey. Sam in her barista apron, her first day at Cascade. Daniel's first day in customer service, the day Sam became CEO. Daniel's promotion to director, his wedding to Jenny, Sam and Marcus's wedding. The birth of Sam's daughter, whom she'd named Patricia after the woman who gave her a chance. "One moment," Daniel said, looking at that first photo. "One moment changed everything." "Every moment changes everything," Sam replied. "We just don't usually notice." Jonathan Winters, now retired and focused on philanthropy, joined them. His son Noah, now 20 and thriving in college studying assistive technology design, was with him. "You know what I realized," Jonathan said. "That morning, I almost went to a different coffee shop. Beacon was out of my way, but something made me go there." "Fate," Daniel suggested. "Choice," Sam said. "You chose to go somewhere different. I chose to stand up. Daniel chose to keep working despite the discrimination. We all made choices that led us here." "Good choices," Daniel added. "The best choices," Sam agreed. As the celebration continued around them, Sam thought about all the ripples that had spread from that one moment. Hundreds of companies had implemented dignity officer positions. Thousands of people with disabilities had found meaningful employment. The conversation about inclusion in corporate America had fundamentally changed. But more than that, individual lives had been transformed. Daniel, who might have spent his life being underestimated, was now teaching customer service at major corporations. Marcus, who'd been written off as an ex-con, was Cascade's CTO. Robert the janitor was VP of Facilities. Priya was Chief Operating Officer. Kevin ran the most successful accounting department in tech. And Sam was proof that sometimes the most unlikely people were exactly who should be in charge. That wisdom didn't require degrees. That leadership wasn't about commanding, but about standing up for others. Her phone buzzed with a message from a young woman in Ohio. "I'm a barista with autism. I just saw a customer mock my coworker who has a speech impediment. I stood up to them because I remembered your video. The customer turned out to be a small business owner. She apologized and offered us both jobs. The cycle continues. Sam showed the message to Daniel. Another ripple. A tsunami of ripples, Daniel said, which didn't quite make sense, but Sam understood what he meant. That night, after the celebration, Sam stood in her old spot behind Beacon's counter, making a latte just to see if she still could. The muscle memory was there, the exact pressure for tamping espresso, the perfect angle for steaming milk, the steady hand for pouring art. Still got it, Patricia said, watching from her usual corner table. Some things you never forget. Like standing up for what's right. Like that. A young barista Sam didn't recognize was struggling with a difficult customer who was being condescending about her accent. Sam watched for a moment, then saw the barista straighten her shoulders. "Sir, I speak 3 languages fluently. How many do you speak?" The barista said calmly. "Now, would you like your coffee or not?" The customer, chastened, mumbled his order and left quickly. "Good job," Sam told the barista. "Thanks. We all know the story of this place. Patricia tells it to everyone during training, about the importance of standing up for each other. It's like the foundation of working here, the foundation of everything," Sam murmured. As she left Beacon that night, Sam looked back at the coffee shop that had changed her life. It looked the same. Warm lights, mismatched furniture, the smell of coffee and Patricia's pastries wafting out whenever the door opened. But everything was different too. The shop was now a symbol, a pilgrimage site for people who believed in inclusion and dignity. The bathroom walls were covered with photos of employees who'd gone on to other things, many to Cascade, but others to different companies that had embraced inclusive hiring after seeing its success. Sam's daughter Patricia, Patty they called her, was asleep in her car seat as Sam drove home. At 5, Patty was already showing signs of her mother's fierce protection of others. Last week at kindergarten, she'd stood up to kids making fun of a classmate's stutter. "Mommy would want me to be brave," she told her teacher. Marcus was reading when Sam got home, their son Malcolm asleep in his lap. At 3, Malcolm had Marcus's thoughtful nature and Sam's determination. "How was the anniversary?" Marcus asked. "Beautiful. Overwhelming. Right. Any regrets about leaving coffee for corporate?" Sam thought about it. "No, because I never really left coffee. I just started serving it in a different way." "That's either profound or makes no sense." "Both, definitely both." They sat in comfortable silence, their children sleeping, their home quiet, except for the Portland rain that had started again, drumming its familiar rhythm on the windows. Sam's phone lit up with an email from a CEO in Japan. They wanted to implement Cascade's dignity model. Could she consult? Another ripple, reaching across oceans now. Tomorrow she would wake up and run a billion-dollar company. She would make decisions affecting thousands of employees, millions of customers. She would continue pushing for changes that some called radical, but she called necessary. But tonight, she was just Sam Chen, former barista, who had once stood up to a bully and changed the trajectory of multiple lives. "You know what Daniel said today?" she told Marcus. "He said we were never just anything. We were always exactly who we are now. It just took the right moment for the world to see it." He's not wrong. That's pretty philosophical for Daniel. He's been taking online philosophy courses, says understanding how people think helps him in customer service. Of course he has. They carried their sleeping children to bed, tucked them in with the elaborate rituals all parents know, the right stuffed animal, the nightlight at the correct angle, the door open just so. Standing in the hallway between their children's rooms, Sam thought about legacy. Not the corporate kind measured in stock prices and market share, but the human kind measured in lives changed, dignity defended, opportunities created. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked, knowing her contemplative look. "About my mum, how she worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, how she never got to see any of this. She sees it. You think? I know. Every time you stand up for someone, that's her legacy. Every opportunity you create for others, that's her sacrifice bearing fruit." Sam leaned into him, drawing comfort from his presence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There was pending legislation about corporate inclusion standards that she was testifying about, a potential acquisition that could extend their dignity model to Europe, a board meeting about quarterly projections that she'd have to navigate while maintaining their values. But she was ready. She'd been preparing for this her whole life without knowing it. Every difficult customer served with a smile. Every night her mother worked late and Sam had to figure out dinner. Every time she'd stood up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. It had all been preparation. Her phone buzzed one more time, a text from Daniel. "Thanks for seeing me as Daniel, not as Down syndrome. That changed everything." She texted back, "Thank you for teaching me to see. That changed everything too." The rain continued, that steady Portland rhythm that marked time in the Pacific Northwest. Somewhere in the city, another barista was finishing a late shift, wondering if this was all there was. Somewhere else, a person with a disability was facing discrimination and deciding whether to endure it or stand up. Somewhere, a CEO was wondering whether inclusive hiring was worth the effort. And somewhere, the ripples from a single moment of courage continued spreading, reaching people Sam would never meet, changing lives she'd never know about, proving over and over that standing up for one person could mean standing up for everyone. The story that started in a coffee shop hadn't ended. It had just begun, expanding with each person who chose courage over comfort, who saw dignity in every human being, who refused to let "that's just how things are" be the final word. Sam Chen went to sleep that night knowing tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also knowing she would face them the same way she'd faced that woman in Beacon Coffee, with determination, with clarity, and with the absolute conviction that every person deserved to be defended, to be seen, to be valued, because that's what humans do for each other, or at least, it's what they should do. And in corporate boardrooms and coffee shops, in schools and factories, in every place where humans gathered, the message was spreading: stand up, speak out, defend dignity, one person at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time, until the ripples became waves, and the waves became an ocean of change. 10 years had passed since Sam Chen became CEO of Cascade Dynamics. The company had grown from a billion-dollar regional success to a $50 billion global force. But what made headlines wasn't the valuation. It was the complete transformation of how corporations thought about human dignity. Sam stood in her office, now on the top floor of Cascade's new carbon-neutral headquarters, looking out at Portland's skyline. At 39, she had silver streaking through her black hair. Earned, Marcus said, from every board battle fought and won. Behind her, the walls were covered not with her degrees. She'd eventually finished her MBA, more to silence critics than from necessity, or awards, though there were many, but with photos of employees whose lives had been transformed. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Daniel entered, now Executive Vice President of Global Customer Experience, a title that would have seemed impossible for someone with Down syndrome just a decade ago. He was followed by someone Sam hadn't expected, the woman from that morning 10 years ago, the one who'd used the slur that started everything. "Sam," Daniel said, "this is Margaret Wilson. She has something she wants to tell you." Margaret looked older, humbled, her designer clothes replaced with simple professional attire. "Miss Chen, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see." "You're here," Sam said simply. "That means Daniel invited you. If he thinks you should be here, then you should be here." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I need to tell you what happened after that day. After the video went viral, I lost everything. My job, my husband, most of my friends. I was the woman who said that horrible word, and the internet never forgets." Sam remained quiet, letting her continue. "At first I was angry. I blamed you, Daniel, everyone but myself. Then I was forced to take a job, the only one I could get, as a cleaner in a group home for adults with intellectual disabilities. I went from making 6 figures to minimum wage, cleaning up after people I'd once thought were—" She couldn't finish the sentence. But something changed. The residents, they didn't know who I was. They just knew I was Margaret who cleaned their home. They talked to me, shared their dreams, their fears. One man, Thomas, he has Down syndrome like Daniel. He taught me to play chess. He beats me every time." Daniel smiled at this. "Thomas is really good at chess. I've been working there for 8 years now," Margaret continued. "I'm the director now, advocating for the same people I once—" She stopped, composed herself. "I came to apologize. Not for forgiveness, I don't deserve that. But to tell you that your standing up to me that day saved my soul. It forced me to confront the ugliness in myself and change it." "And?" Sam prompted, sensing there was more. "And to ask if Cascade would consider partnering with our group home. We need job training programs for our residents. Real jobs, not just charity. Thomas wants to work in customer service. He says if Daniel can be a vice president, he can at least be a representative." Sam looked at Daniel, who nodded slightly. "We'll do more than partner," Sam said. "We'll create a pipeline program. Daniel will oversee it personally." Margaret broke down completely. "After what I did." "You changed," Daniel said simply. "That's what matters. People can change. Sam taught me that." After Margaret left, Daniel and Sam stood in comfortable silence. "That was brave of you," Sam said, "inviting her here." "She wrote me a letter every year for 5 years before I responded," Daniel said. "Real letters with stamps. She never asked for forgiveness, just told me about the residents at her group home, about how they were changing her. I figured anyone who could write that many letters without getting a response deserved a chance." "You're a better person than most, Daniel Harper." "No, I just remember what it's like to need a second chance. We all do sometimes." That afternoon, Sam had her weekly lunch with Jonathan Winters, now fully retired, but still the company's largest individual shareholder. They met at Beacon, of course, where Patricia, at 72, still came in daily, despite having sold the chain to a collective of employees who maintained its inclusive values. "The board's nervous about the European expansion," Jonathan said, cutting straight to business as always. "They're always nervous about something," Sam replied, adding extra sugar to her coffee, a habit from her barista days she'd never shaken. "This is different. You're proposing to require any company we acquire to implement our full dignity model. The Frankfurt firm alone has 10,000 employees. The board thinks it's too aggressive. And you think?" "I think that's why I recommended you as my successor. Not to do things the safe way, but the right way." Patricia joined them, moving slowly but still sharp. "You know, I've been thinking about that morning. If that horrible woman hadn't come in, if she hadn't said what she said, would any of this have happened?" "Something else would have," Sam said. "The moment was waiting. It just needed a catalyst." "Or maybe," Daniel said, appearing with a tray of pastries he'd helped make. He still volunteered at Beacon on weekends, teaching new employees with disabilities. "It needed all of us to be in the right place at the right time, like a puzzle where all the pieces had to fit." "Very philosophical, Daniel," Patricia said. "I've been taking more philosophy classes online. Harvard lets anyone audit now. I'm learning about fate versus free will." "And which do you think this was?" Jonathan asked. "Both," Daniel said confidently. "We chose to be there, but something bigger chose the moment." Sam's phone buzzed with a message from Patty's school. Her 10-year-old daughter had organized a protest against the school's policy of separating special education students during lunch. "That's your daughter," Marcus said, reading over her shoulder. He'd come to Beacon straight from a coding session, still wearing his Programmers Do It in Arrays t-shirt that Sam had bought him as a joke, but which he wore with pride. "She's grounded," Sam said, but she was smiling. "You're proud," Marcus countered. "Grounded and proud. It's possible to be both." They were interrupted by a young woman approaching their table nervously. She had cerebral palsy, using crutches to navigate the crowded cafe. "Ms. Chen? I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm Anna. I just started the Dignity Fellowship. I wanted to thank you. I've been a barista here for 2 years, but I have a computer science degree. No one would hire me for programming jobs because of my disability. Now I'm going to be a junior developer at Cascade." "You earned that position," Sam said. "The fellowship just opened the door. The door was locked before you gave me the key." After Anna left, the group sat in contemplative silence. The afternoon sun slanted through Beacon's windows, illuminating the wall of photos Patricia had installed, the wall of transformation showing all the employees who'd gone on to other things. "Remember when you couldn't steam milk properly?" Patricia asked Daniel. "I was so bad," Daniel laughed. "My hands shook so much." "Now you teach customer service to Fortune 500 companies," Sam added, "only because you saw more in me than a disability." "No," Sam corrected. "I saw you. The disability was just one part of who you are, like my stubbornness is one part of who I am." "Your stubbornness is definitely more than one part," Marcus teased, earning an elbow in the ribs. That evening, Sam attended Malcolm's kindergarten play. Her 8-year-old son played a tree, which he performed with intense seriousness, not moving a muscle for 20 minutes. Patty, despite being grounded, was allowed to attend, and cheered loudest when Malcolm took his bow. "Trees are important," Malcolm told them solemnly afterward. "Without trees, there's no oxygen. Without oxygen, there's no life. I was essential." "You were perfect," Sam assured him. At home, after the kids were asleep, Sam and Marcus sat on their porch looking out at their garden. They'd bought the house 5 years ago, choosing it not for its size, but for the garden where they could teach their kids to grow things. "The European board meeting is tomorrow," Marcus said. "You ready? I'm going to tell them the same thing I told the American board 10 years ago. We don't compromise on dignity, even if it costs the deal, especially then. What's the point of having power if you don't use it to protect the powerless?" That sounds like something Daniel would say. Daniel's usually right about the important things. The next morning's board meeting was brutal. The European executives pushed back on everything: the inclusive hiring requirements, the dignity officer position, the pay equity standards. "This is not how business is done in Europe," the lead negotiator said. "Then European business needs to change," Sam replied calmly. "You're talking about transforming centuries of corporate culture. I'm talking about treating humans like humans. That shouldn't be revolutionary in any century." The negotiation went on for 6 hours. Sam didn't budge. Finally, the Frankfurt firm's CEO, Hans Müller, asked to speak with Sam privately. "I have a son," he said quietly. "He has autism. In Germany, the assumption is he'll never work meaningfully. Your model suggests otherwise." "Not suggests, proves. We have over 300 autistic employees in roles from entry-level to executive. Your son isn't limited by his autism. He's limited by others' imagination about what autism means. If we agree to your terms, will you personally oversee the transformation?" "Daniel Harper will. He's the best in the world at this, and he understands what it's like to be underestimated." The deal went through. Within a year, the Frankfurt office had gone from 0 employees with visible disabilities to 50. Productivity increased. Innovation flourished. The European business press called it the dignity revolution. But for Sam, the real victory was smaller. Hans Müller's son, Eric, started as an intern in the data analysis department, where his ability to see patterns others missed made him exceptional. Hans sent Sam a photo of Eric on his first day, wearing a Cascade Dynamics badge and smiling bigger than the Brandenburg Gate. "Another ripple," Sam murmured, adding the photo to her wall. 5 more years passed. Cascade Dynamics became the most valuable company in the world, not through exploitation or monopoly, but through the radical idea that human dignity was profitable. The Cascade model was taught at every business school, though Sam always insisted they should call it the Beacon model, since that's where it really started. Daniel had married Jenny, and they'd adopted 2 children with Down syndrome. He'd also written a book, The Customer is Human, a revolutionary approach to service, that became required reading at companies worldwide. Marcus had invented a programming language designed to be accessible to people with various disabilities, opening the tech world to millions who'd been excluded. It was called Beacon, of course. Patricia had passed away peacefully at 77, but not before seeing Beacon Coffee become a national chain with 200 locations, all maintaining the original's values. Her funeral was attended by thousands, including 3 senators, 2 governors, and countless individuals whose lives had been changed by a chance to work at her coffee shops. Jonathan Winters had established the Patricia Morrison Foundation, funding inclusive employment programs globally. His son Noah, now 30 and a successful engineer, designed communication devices that had given voice to thousands of non-verbal individuals. And Margaret Wilson, the woman whose slur had started it all, had become one of the nation's most effective advocates for disability rights. She never forgot what she'd done, but she'd transformed her shame into action, her prejudice into understanding. On the 15th anniversary of the incident, Cascade held a global celebration. Every office, from Portland to Tokyo to Frankfurt to Sao Paulo, participated. The theme was "One Moment, Infinite Ripples." Sam gave the keynote address, broadcast to over 1 million employees and partners worldwide. But she didn't stand on the stage alone. Daniel was beside her, as he'd been from the beginning. 15 years ago, Sam began, I was a barista who made a choice. Daniel was a new employee who just wanted to belong. A woman said something horrible, and in that moment, we all had choices to make. I chose to keep trying, Daniel added, even when it was hard. I chose to stand up, even when I was scared. Patricia chose to support us, even when it might have cost business. Jonathan chose to see potential, even when credentials suggested otherwise. And everyone watching this has the same choice every day, Sam continued. Stand up or stay quiet. Include or exclude. See people or see labels. Choose to see people, Daniel said simply. That's all. Just see people. The celebration continued for hours, with stories shared from around the world. A woman in India, who'd been in a caste that traditionally couldn't work in offices, now running Cascade's Delhi branch. A man in Brazil who'd been homeless, now heading their South American innovation lab. A teenager in Japan with severe social anxiety who'd started in their work-from-home program and was now their youngest team lead. Each story was a thread in the tapestry that had begun with a single moment of courage in a Portland coffee shop. Late that night, after the celebrations had ended, Sam found herself back at the original Beacon location. It was closed, but she had a key. Patricia had given it to her before she died, saying someone should always be able to get coffee at any hour. She made herself a latte, pleased that her hands still remembered the movements. As she sat in the quiet shop, surrounded by the ghosts of all that had happened here, the door chimed. Daniel entered, somehow not surprising her. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Too much to think about." "I know, 15 years, sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime." They sat in comfortable silence, two friends who'd changed each other's lives and, in doing so, changed the world. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stood up for me?" Daniel asked. "You would have been fine. You're too strong not to be." "Maybe. But would you have been? Would you have found your path?" Sam considered this. "I think the path would have found me eventually. But I'm glad it happened when it did. How it did. With you. Me too." As dawn broke over Portland, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they watched the city wake up. Soon the morning shift would arrive. The coffee machines would hum to life. Customers would stream in, most not knowing the history of this place, not knowing that a revolution had started here with a slur and a response. But some would know. Some would come specifically because they knew. Parents of children with disabilities, formerly incarcerated individuals seeking hope, executives trying to understand how to build inclusive companies. They all made pilgrimages to Beacon, to the table where Sam had comforted Daniel, to the spot where Jonathan had offered her a job, to the place where everything changed. "We should probably go," Daniel said. "We both have meetings." "CEO things," Sam laughed. "You running customer experience for the entire global operation, me running the whole company. Who would have believed it?" Patricia would have. She always saw who we really were. They left together, but not before Sam wrote something on a napkin and pinned it to the community board. Every moment matters. Every person counts. Every choice ripples. Stand up. Speak out. Change everything. By noon, someone had taken a photo of the napkin and posted it online. By evening, it had been shared 1,000,000 times. By the next morning, it was painted on a wall in Detroit, printed on T-shirts in Bangkok, quoted in a speech at the United Nations. The ripples continued. 20 years after the incident, Sam was invited to speak at Harvard Business School's graduation. She stood before the next generation of business leaders, many of whom had grown up in a world where the Cascade model was normal, where inclusive hiring was standard, where dignity officers were as common as CFOs. "You don't know what it was like before," she told them, "when people with disabilities were hidden away, when ex-convicts couldn't get second chances, when being different meant being less than. You've inherited a better corporate world, but it's not perfect. It's your job to find the next frontier of dignity, the next group being excluded, the next injustice being normalized." A student raised her hand. "Ms. Chen, what if we face resistance? What if standing up costs us our careers?" Sam thought about her studio apartment, her mother's medical bills, the fear she'd felt confronting that customer. "Then you'll find out who you really are. And that knowledge, that you're someone who stands up when it matters, is worth any career." After her speech, Sam was approached by a young man with Down syndrome wearing a Harvard MBA pin. "Miss Chen, I'm Thomas, from Margaret Wilson's group home, the one who plays chess." Sam's eyes widened. "Thomas, you're at Harvard?" "Getting my MBA. I start at Goldman Sachs next month, their first analyst with Down syndrome. The recruiter said they wanted someone who thinks differently. I told them I'd definitely do that." "That's incredible, Thomas. It's because of you and Daniel. You showed the world we could do more than anyone imagined. I'm just following the path you created." That evening, Sam called Daniel, who was in Tokyo establishing Cascade's newest dignity initiative. "You'll never guess who I met," she said, and told him about Thomas. "From Margaret's group home? That's amazing. See, more ripples." an ocean of them now. Hey, Sam, I've been thinking we should write a book. About what? About all of it. The coffee shop, the standing up, everything that followed, but not like a business book, like a story, about friends who changed each other's lives. Who would want to read that? Everyone who's ever felt powerless, everyone who's ever been mocked, everyone who's ever wondered if standing up matters. Sam thought about it. What would we call it? The Dignity Revolution. How a barista and a bully changed corporate America. We can't call Margaret a bully. She's changed too much. How a moment of courage changed everything. Better. We'll work on it. They did write the book. It became a bestseller, but more importantly, it became a handbook for corporate transformation. Companies used it to restructure their hiring. Schools used it to teach inclusion. Families used it to have difficult conversations about prejudice and growth. The book tour brought Sam and Daniel to cities around the world. In each place, they met people whose lives had been touched by their story. A girl with autism in Mumbai, who'd started coding because of Marcus's accessible programming language. A formerly homeless man in London who'd gotten a job through a dignity program. A CEO in Sydney who'd restructured his entire company after watching Daniel's customer service videos. We did this, Daniel would say wonderingly after each event. We started it, Sam would correct. Everyone else did the work. 25 years after the incident, Sam announced her retirement as CEO of Cascade Dynamics. She was 54, younger than most retiring CEOs, but she had other plans. She was starting a foundation with Daniel, Marcus, and others from their journey. The goal to make dignity programs mandatory in every corporation worldwide. Her successor was Anna, the woman with cerebral palsy who'd approached her at Beacon 15 years earlier. Anna had risen through the ranks, proving that brilliance came in many forms and that crutches were just mobility tools, not limitations. You're leaving Cascade in perfect hands, Sam told the board. She learned from the best, the board chair replied. Sam's last day as CEO was spent not in the executive suite, but in the Portland office's customer service center, taking calls alongside Daniel's team. Her last call was from an elderly woman whose computer wasn't working. Sam spent an hour walking her through the fix, even though it could have been done in minutes. Why spend so long on one call? A new employee asked. Because she wasn't just calling about her computer. She was lonely. She needed someone to talk to. Sometimes service means seeing what people really need, not just what they ask for. Daniel taught you that? Daniel taught me everything important. The retirement party was held at Beacon Coffee's original location. The shop was packed beyond capacity, spilling out onto the street. Former employees, current executives, customers whose lives had been changed, they all came to celebrate not just Sam's career, but the movement she and Daniel had started. Daniel gave the main speech, of course. 25 years ago, someone called me a word that was meant to make me feel like nothing. Sam stood up and said I was something. Not special, not inspiring, just a person deserving of dignity. That's all any of us want, to be seen as people. He paused, looking at the crowd. Sam didn't just change my life. She changed how the world sees people like me. People with disabilities, people with criminal records, people without traditional education. She made space for all of us. Not at the margins, but at the center. Not as charity cases, but as valuable contributors. But here's the secret Sam taught me. It wasn't her power that made the difference. It was her choice to use whatever power she had, even when that was just the power to speak up for others. Every single person here has that same power. Use it. Sam stood to respond, looking out at the sea of faces. She saw Margaret Wilson, now in her 70s, still working in disability advocacy. She saw Thomas from the group home, now a managing director at Goldman Sachs. She saw Eric Mueller from Germany, who'd started as an intern and was now running Cascade's entire European data operation. This isn't my story, she said. It's our story. Daniel's courage in facing discrimination every day. Patricia's wisdom in hiring inclusively. Jonathan's vision in seeing potential over credentials. Marcus's brilliance in making technology accessible. Every person who chose to stand up instead of staying quiet. She raised her coffee cup. Patricia's special blend, still served at every Beacon location. To the next 25 years, to the dignity revolution still to come, to the moments of courage waiting to happen, to the baristas and CEOs and everyone in between who will choose to see people as people. The toast echoed through the shop and out onto the street. to seeing people as people. That night, Sam and Daniel sat in the closed shop, just the two of them, sharing one last coffee in the place where it all began. "What now?" Daniel asked. "Now we make sure the ripples keep spreading. The foundation will help, but really it's about the stories. People need to know that standing up matters, that one moment can change everything. Like ours did. Like ours did." They sat in comfortable silence, two friends who'd been through everything together. Outside, Portland's ever-present rain had started, tapping against the windows like punctuation marks in their story. "Sam," Daniel said, "thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. Really seeing me. That changed everything. Daniel, you changed everything. I just refuse to let anyone diminish you. There's a difference." "Is there?" Sam thought about it. Maybe not. Maybe standing up for others and lifting them up is the same thing. "Philosophy, Sam, is deep, Sam." They laughed, the sound filling the empty shop with warmth. As they prepared to leave, Daniel stopped at the door. "Same time next week?" "Wouldn't miss it." Because some things hadn't changed. Every week, no matter how busy they were, Sam and Daniel met for coffee at Beacon. They'd done it as barista and trainee, as corporate executive and customer service representative, as CEO and vice president, and now as co-founders of a foundation that would carry their mission forward. The barista and the man with Down syndrome, who'd changed corporate America, one cup of coffee at a time. But really they were just Sam and Daniel, two friends who'd stood up for each other when it mattered most, and the ripples from that standing continued spreading, reaching every corner of the corporate world, every coffee shop and boardroom, every place where someone might be mocked or dismissed or diminished. "Stand up," the ripples said. "Speak out. Defend dignity. One person at a time. One moment at a time. One choice at a time. Forever and always." The morning after the retirement party, Sam woke early, as she had for decades. But instead of checking emails or reviewing reports, she walked to Beacon for coffee, just as a customer. The shop was busy with the morning rush. Behind the counter, a young woman with a prosthetic arm was pulling shots with remarkable efficiency. A man with Tourette's was taking orders, his tics barely noticeable as he focused on customers. The shift supervisor was a woman who'd been formerly incarcerated. Her journey from prison to coffee shop to leadership, its own story of transformation. Sam ordered a simple black coffee and found a corner table. She pulled out a notebook, paper, not digital, and began writing. Chapter 1. The morning everything changed. It was just another Tuesday at Beacon Coffee House. The rain was doing that particularly Portland thing, where it couldn't decide if it wanted to drizzle or pour. I was teaching a new employee named Daniel how to steam milk, and a customer walked in who would change all our lives. She wrote for 3 hours, barely noticing as the morning rush gave way to the lunch crowd. The story poured out of her, not the sanitized corporate version told in business schools, but the real story. The fear, the doubt, the small moments of connection that mattered as much as the big victories. "Excuse me, are you Sam Chen?" Sam looked up to find a young woman, maybe 20, standing nervously by her table. "I am. I'm Riley. I just started working here. I have ADHD and dyslexia, and for years everyone told me I'd never amount to anything. But I heard your story, saw what you and Daniel did, and I thought maybe I could amount to something after all." "You already amount to something," Sam said firmly. "You're Riley. That's enough. Everything else is just what you choose to do with being Riley. Can I ask you something? How did you know to stand up that day? Weren't you scared?" Sam set down her pen, giving Riley her full attention. "I was terrified, but I was more angry than scared. And sometimes anger at injustice is the most useful emotion we have. It pushes us past fear into action. But what if I stand up and lose my job? Then you'll know you worked for the wrong people. But more likely you'll discover that standing up is exactly what good employers want to see. It shows character, conviction, leadership." Riley nodded, absorbing this. "The customer who said that word, do you ever wonder what happened to her?" Sam smiled. "I know exactly what happened to her. She's Margaret Wilson, one of the leading disability rights advocates in the country. She took the worst moment of her life and transformed it into purpose. She's proof that people can change." "Really? The same person?" "The same person. She'll be speaking at our foundation's launch next month, standing next to Daniel, who she once tried to diminish. That's the power of choosing growth over grudges." After Riley left, Sam returned to her writing. The notebook filled with memories, insights, moments that had seemed small at the time, but had shaped everything that followed. Her phone buzzed. Patty, now 20 and a junior at Stanford studying social entrepreneurship, was texting. "Mum, my professor wants to know if you'll speak to our class about the beacon moment. I told him you're retired and writing, but he says you're the only person who can tell it right." Sam smiled, her daughter carrying the torch forward. "Tell him I'll do it if Daniel can come too. The story isn't mine alone." "Already asked him. He said yes. He also said to tell you he figured out the title for the book. More Than Coffee. A story of dignity, friendship and revolution. Tell Daniel that's perfect." And it was perfect, because it had been more than coffee from the beginning. It had been about seeing people standing up, choosing courage over comfort, dignity over discrimination. Sam looked around Beacon, at the customers typing on laptops, chatting with friends, living their lives. Any one of them could be the next person to stand up, to spark change, to start their own ripples. The door chimed, and Daniel walked in, not for any meeting or event, just for coffee with his friend, as they'd done countless times over the years. "Working on the book?" he asked, seeing her notebook, trying to capture it all. "It feels impossible." "Just tell the truth, that we were two people who chose to see each other as human. Everything else followed from that." That simple? The best things usually are. They sat together, the former barista who became a CEO, and the man with Down syndrome who became a global executive, but really just Sam and Daniel, two friends who'd changed the world by refusing to let it remain unchanged. Outside, Portland's rain continued, eternal and somehow comforting. Inside Beacon, the coffee machines hissed and gurgled. Customers came and went, and life continued its beautiful, complicated dance. But now, woven through it all, was the knowledge that every moment held the potential for transformation. Every interaction could be the one that changed everything. Every person who walked through that door might be the next Sam, the next Daniel, the next catalyst for dignity and change. The ripples had become waves, the waves had become an ocean, and still they spread, carrying the simple message that had started it all. Stand up for others. Speak truth to power. See people as people. Choose dignity always, and never ever underestimate the power of one person choosing to say, "That's not okay. Get out." Because sometimes those 3 words can change the world. Sam closed her notebook, the first chapter complete. There would be many more. The struggles, the victories, the quiet moments of connection that mattered as much as the public triumphs. But for now, it was enough to have begun, to have set down in words what had started with a moment of courage. "Coffee?" Daniel asked, already knowing the answer. "Always," Sam replied. They stood together at the counter where it had all begun, ordering their drinks from Riley, who made them with the careful attention of someone who understood she was part of something bigger than just serving coffee. And she was. They all were. Every person who chose kindness over cruelty, inclusion over exclusion, courage over comfort, they were all part of the story that started in a coffee shop and changed the world. One cup at a time, one choice at a time, one moment at a time. Forever and always. The end. But really just the beginning, because the ripples never stop spreading. Thank you for experiencing this incredible journey of courage, dignity, and the transformative power of standing up for others. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to join our community of people who believe in the power of defending human dignity. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that their voice matters, that standing up for others is always right, and that one moment of courage can transform countless lives. Remember, you never know when your decision to speak up for someone could change the entire trajectory of their life, and yours. Until next time, keep standing up for what's right, keep defending those who need defenders, and never underestimate the power of one person choosing courage over comfort. Every one of us has the ability to be the person who makes a difference. Sometimes it starts with something as simple as saying, "That's not okay," and meaning it. The dignity revolution continues with each of us. In every moment, with every choice, be the person who stands up, be the voice that speaks out, be the change that starts the ripples. The world is waiting for your moment of courage.